And we're live. Welcome back, everybody, to the PEO Speedwagon podcast. Thanks so much for tuning in again. As always, I'm your host, Rick Johnson, joined with co-host Ryan Shapiro, the president of PEOMG. And in this very special episode, we have Marcus Wilbers joining us. Marcus, thank you very much for being here. Marcus is president of Legal Back Office. His background comes from being an attorney in St. Louis, as well as getting into the HR consulting and PEO space for a while, and president there as well. And now sort of blending everything together and putting the background of your attorney and your law career with HR and PEO. So excited to talk about it. I think there's a lot of crossovers here for us to dive into.
Yeah, jack of all trades.
Yeah, exactly. So is that right? Would you say that you started as an attorney? Was that kind of your first job that you have claim to?
First professional job.
Okay,
Yeah.
Nice.
Paper route was first.
Paper route.
Yeah. Yeah, I started out, my first real job was, I started an airplane cleaning business in Jefferson City. So washing airplanes. And so, got into entrepreneurship and really kind of like that. But back then it was just to, kind of make money so I could do shit on the weekends.
Yeah.
It wasn't I wasn't thinking about it professionally,
Yeah.
So I had a lot of jobs, but yeah, being an attorney was my first professional job.
Nice. So how did cleaning airplanes relate? No, I'm kidding.
Yeah.
No, very cool. Well, then what made you, I guess you're in the, as an attorney, then kind of see the PEO world and think that's something I could get into?
Yeah, I kind of took a circuitous route to that. So I practiced for, 7 or 8 years at Greensfelder here in St. Louis.
Yeah.
And just kind of, I think I wanted to get out of the billable hour framework. At the time I was getting ready to be a dad and didn't, wanted to really focus on that. So I wanted to kind of find something else. And so I started working at, now it's Marsh, what is it? MMA. Yeah, Marsh Clinton. And got into, employee benefits. And that was right around the time that the ACA employer mandate was coming out.
Oh, okay.
And so got into compliance consulting and HR consulting. They kind of fed into each other. And so got to learn a lot about employee benefits, medical benefits, how they worked, how companies don't understand them. And then I had this idea, which I thought was my idea of hey, I know benefits and I know employment law, which I was an employment lawyer. Let me put these together. And then I found out about PEOs. I'm like, well, this is already a thing. Let's do this. Let's build this. And then started learning more and more about it, and started down that path.
Interesting. And I mean, it sounds like legal back office is the culmination of both of those things coming together. Maybe for the listeners, a summary of what legal back office does, a little bit, just a simple explanation.
Yeah, so legal back office is similar to a PEO in that it is business process outsourcing.
Okay.
And so, we take on the things that are, non-core functions of law firms. So bookkeeping, invoicing clients, managed IT, marketing, accounts receivable, anything from building a website, things like that. So the non-core functions, the things that lawyers, really didn't start a firm to do. They started a firm to represent clients, and that's what they're taught in law school. That's what they learn about. That's what they're passionate about, and only they can do that. That's their core function. So those non-core functions are the things that they just have to do to run a business. And so that's where legal back office comes in, is we take on those non-core functions and kind of, give them the time back to focus on their core functions, time back to focus on their clients, or just, be with their families.
Yeah, nice. I mean, it sounds very similar to, like you said, a PEO in some ways.
Similar.
Is it not involving the co-employment relationship?
Yep, does not involve co-employment.
Yep, gotcha. Did you notice what are some of the key differences from, a general market like a PEO for all industries versus the, legal businesses and law firms? What unique challenges did they have over other industries?
Well, I think focusing on a specific market is kind of an advantage. We can speak directly to law firms, right? We want to work with law firms that are, generally speaking, 2 to 25 lawyers, kind of the smaller side of law firms. And there's still a lot. There are about 450,000 law firms in the U.S. that fit that profile. And being a lawyer and our co-founder and our CEO, my business partner Sarah Stock, is a lawyer. And so we can empathize. We know what it's like to be a lawyer. We know the challenges they're facing. So we can kind of tailor our services to them, and we can kind of speak to them not as a service provider, but as, hey, we've been in your shoes. We know what that's like.
Yeah.
Let us help you make this more successful, or let us just help you make this easier.
Yeah, I'm sure that makes it much more relatable in the services you guys offer. Do you notice like a common big breakthrough for those companies when they start working with you? Is there one thing that a lot of law firms seem to be missing and you guys help a lot with?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is in accounting, accounting, bookkeeping, invoicing, right? It's a lot of firms will, when we start working with them, they'll have a chart of accounts, right? But they're not getting financial statements, they're not producing financial statements month over month. And so for a lot of the firms we work with, it's, is there money in the account or not? Are we making money? Is our balance higher or lower? But that doesn't really tell them like the trajectory of the business or where they're going, or they might do their financials once every year for taxes,
Right.
But if you're doing it once a year, it's hard to see the trends in the business. And so I think for a lot of clients we work with, when we start doing their bookkeeping, like seeing it month over month, and they just get to understand the business a little bit better, and where they're spending money, and how things ebb and flow.
Yeah.
I mean, a common tagline in the PEO industry is that a PEO for a small to medium-sized business is instant HR infrastructure. And legal back office sounds very similar. Perhaps you designed it to be that way, given your PEO experience, to be instant back office infrastructure for a legal practice. If I don't have these things, or I'm kind of cobbling them together through spreadsheets and QuickBooks and this, and no real ability to financially forecast or on schedule invoice my customers so I can get more into a consistent AR state, then it's there. You flip a switch, you're into it. You implement. I'm sure there's some implementation part to this, but then what you do now, it just kind of works,
right?
And you can shift your attention back to why you got into practicing law, or back on the PEO side, like why you decided to start making purple dinosaurs or whatever.
Right. What's the businesses?
So it gives you that opportunity, like frees that focus back up. So this similar value prop that is really powerful.
I think it's very, very similar to PEO in that, it's not, you don't have to have all of the entire suite of services, right? And you can, I just need help with this or that. Completely fine. I guess that is a difference from a PEO. PEOs that I've worked with, ones that I'm familiar with, we have to have payroll. Like that's kind of we have to have that.
That's the linchpin solution.
Yeah, right. That's where all the data comes from. Then we can add on, work comp, we can add on medical benefits or retirement or whatever else. But, for us, it's, do you need help with bookkeeping or invoicing? And we'll see clients like add services over time, or recruiting. We're doing recruiting for law firms too. But having these services that just kind of surround them with, it does provide that infrastructure. And I think knowing the market makes it easier. I think in the PEO world, I think that was a challenge that I experienced, like knowing the client's business and knowing how to set up the HR infrastructure was a challenge. Is it a high turnover business or not? Or what levels are turning over, or what's the comp model for this type of business? Like all that's going to vary industry to industry and company by company. And for the most part, we see pretty similar trends. Now it's going to vary with practice area and what type of law that they're practicing. But for the most part, they have similar needs.
Does that surprise you that more? I mean, there are some PEOs that we work with that have verticalized. They've either verticalized in the sense that they work with certain types of industries, like that's their daily work. They'll say they work with ones on the outside of that, but they generally don't. Or they have verticalized their sales reps towards that. But then I'd say most are still industry agnostic.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that, and perhaps why that remains?
I mean, I think it's a tremendous advantage to know your client's business. Right. I think you can anticipate things about them. You can speak directly to the challenges that they're facing. At Tandem, we had Tandem HR. We were big into healthcare, right? We had a lot of senior living clients. We had hospital clients. We had, a lot of healthcare providers, and we knew the challenges that came with that. A lot of high turnover. A lot of very incremental hours tracking. And so we can talk about that in the prospecting phase, and we could talk about that, and it just kind of demonstrates to them that we know them, and that we're not just in it for the revenue, that we are in it to help them grow their business. And the more that we could talk about, what they're getting out of the relationship, not just, the services we're going to provide, but the impact that it's going to have on their business. I think it just resonates a lot more with them.
Yeah. And that aligns a lot. We talk about this, and I've spoke to over the past year 5 or 6 different PEO sales forces, and one of the core things to consider is that the concept of people buy from people they like has downshifted. It's still important, but it has downshifted, and it's been replaced by people who buy from people who understand them. And so what you're talking through is, hey, we understand the unique aspects of your business, the comings and goings of things that occur in payroll or HR or hiring or firing or seasonality of a particular business model. And so not that we've necessarily designed our PEO service model to work exclusively in that space, but we know how to configure it, right, so that it can work specifically for you. And we know those points of configuration so that when a senior living center of 3,000 employees comes in, we can tailor our solution around it because we know you.
Yeah. And again, it just makes the relationship more authentic. I think it's it's all about helping them.
Okay. Common language, I think, is key in that regard. I think common language is part of the reason why PEO consultants, brokers help organizations too, because there is a lot of jargon. There's a lot of things that PEO people say that a business owner who's been around for 20 years has never heard.
Yeah.
And you're talking one language, I'm talking the other, and we're actually saying the same thing.
Yeah.
And the unfortunate consequence of that is the business owner gets confused, frustrated, and then steps away from a solution that could fix it because you could never find that common language.
Right.
So how do you start communicating? And obviously understanding somebody is often the first step.
I mean, PEOs are complicated just by the nature of the things that you're bundling together, the services you're bundling together. It's very, very and some of it is just out of anyone's control, right? The healthcare system that we have in the US is unbelievably complex, and the underwriting rules, and the employment laws. I mean, you talk about acronyms and PEOs, employment laws. I mean, we love acronyms. But being able to speak the same language, have that common, almost shared purpose. I mean, at Legal Back Office, we'd like to say created by lawyers for lawyers, and kind of like FUBU, for us. That's a little bit. It just resonates more. But getting out of the jargon, I think that can be really tough in the PEO space, just because it is complex. But I mean, that's what's the old saying? That's when you understand something really well, you can make it simple.
Yeah. And
if you can't make it simple, then you don't understand it well enough.
Yeah. It's the definition of genius, taking something complex and making it simple. And the ability to do that in, imagine, your world with Legal Back Office or the PEO world, that allows that potential customer to access those services quicker and more confidently. And if you're doing that, then everybody wins.
I think it also positions the relationship differently. If it's if it's just an exchange of money for service, here are the services we're going to provide, then I think you're vulnerable. As a PEO or as Legal Back Office, you're vulnerable to the next service provider who can tout better services or better prices. But if you can demonstrate some kind of a shared purpose or an understanding of the client, then it's about more than just the service. It's about we're growing together.
Right. It's interesting too, though, because if you can do so, and tell me what you think about this. Every PEO rep out there loves this real juicy HR driven conversation.
Mhm.
There's strategic growth. I'm trying to develop my employees. I want to create future leaders in the organization. And those are what, 1 out of 20 conversations you have where someone's kind of thinking that way when you
Yeah.
get into that respective room. The other 19, or let's just say 15 of 20, are more like, hey, I just want this to work and I want
Mhm.
cheaper, better benefits.
Yeah.
And so a PEO rep goes like, to like your point, hey, there's not a whole lot of value there. But I think that if you can say, I've understood those to be your priorities, Marcus, like that's number 1 and number 2. I imagine there are other ones behind that. So let's resolve 1 and 2. And can we then have more conversations about 3, 4, and 5 that you're not really willing to share with me at this point? And I think too frequently PEO reps either like step away from that and go, this is a P&B, payroll and benefits opportunity only, and then don't double click into that because kind of going back to people buy from people who understand them, like, be like, hey, you heard me. Like, you heard these were the most important things. And now I'm willing to tell you more.
Yeah.
Because you showed for me that you were willing to listen and address what was important to me. And if you couldn't, no harm, no foul. Like you just couldn't, right? But we can move on. And so I think that there's a lesson there that if you're a business owner, we know there's 100 priorities behind number 1 and 2. But number 1 or 2 are there because they're really important. So go address them.
Yeah.
And then try to get deeper.
Yeah. As you're talking about that, I'm thinking of 2 things. One is I'm always leery of like a sales rep who will, say, well, here's the answer. Who has an answer, quickly. This is what we're going to do, and this is going to solve it. It's going to be great. It's going to be awesome. Yeah. I was leery of that because problems are complex, especially people problems. In the PEO industry, you're dealing with people problems. They're very complex because people are really complex. And 2 is, I don't know if you've read, Chris Voss's book, Never Split the Difference, getting to understand someone who talks about tactical empathy and getting someone to say, like, that's right. Like, that's right. You understand me. They're going to be more open then because they feel like you know them.
Million percent. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever is the most pressing issue, even if it's not the one you want to solve, it meant a lot to them.
Yeah.
So like, why ignore it, or why not address it is kind of what I think about.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
I wanted to ask how you went about choosing what services to offer, for law firms. And you mentioned that like you guys are helping one client with recruiting. It sounds like you kind of are listening to what they need and expanding services. Is that how you started with all the services, and do you plan to grow into even more?
Well, to be fair, I can't take credit for like setting up our service model. That was our founder, Sarah Stock.
Nice.
She kind of set that up. And she set that up based on the challenges that she faced in her law firm. So she worked at a large law firm in St. Louis, Lewis Rice, started her own firm, Stock Legal, and started hiring started hiring people for all the needs that she had, and then realized like, this is not a sustainable model. I can't, I need a fraction of this. I can't hire all these people. So she kind of set the framework, but the recruiting really came from the client. It's like, hey, do you guys do this? And so, sure, we can do that. We recruit for ourselves. We know how to do. We have people on the team with HR experience, and we understand. Sarah and myself, we've hired lawyers, we've hired support staff, we've hired people in general. We kind of know how to do that. And so we're starting to lean into that more because the legal market is really, really tighter than just the labor market in general. And so as those questions come up, we've taken it on, and now we're thinking about like building that out as a more robust service line.
Yeah.
I think kind of the idea is to be the team that can help grow law firms, or help support law firms. And so what are the services they need? And I think that's what makes us unique, because there are other companies that do what we do. There are other companies that, other accounting firms that do bookkeeping for law firms. There are other companies that do marketing for law firms. I mean, and marketing for law firms is a huge, huge business. I mean, if you just drive down the highway, you see all the billboards and everything. I mean, it's a massive, massive business. but there are very few. And I mean, I'm struggling to come up with even like another 2 or 3
Yeah.
that bundle these together just for law firms.
Right.
And so that's kind of how we think about it. Like, what are law firms going to need, especially like the law firms that we're looking to service, like these 2 to 25 lawyer firms.
Yeah.
What are they going to need? And you know, we don't want them to have to go elsewhere. If we can help them, we already know them, you know. And a lot of times we know them in a pretty intimate way because we're already doing their books.
Yeah.
So we can tell them, hey, have you thought about this? Or, you know, what challenges are you facing? And then they'll reach out to us because there is that comfort level there.
Yeah. And you said, you know, what are they going to need, right? Like
Yeah.
what's getting harder for them? What would you say with your exposure to all these different law firms you're seeing in the industry is getting more and more difficult for them to do on their own?
Yeah, I think finding and retaining people
Yeah, that's the
is
biggest one.
really, really tough. Yeah, it's very common for firms to come to us or existing clients to say, you know, we have a bookkeeper, we had a bookkeeper, and this person's been doing our books for 25 years.
Yeah.
And they're retiring. We don't even know what to do now.
Mhm.
You know, how do we find someone like this? And you know, the reality is that it's you probably can't. You probably can't. Like the days of like finding someone and putting them in a role and forget you got that done for 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's not the market we're in now, you know. And you know, so we can try and educate there. We can try and find you that person, or we'll find, you know, maybe we need to reshuffle the roles. But maybe we should start doing your books for you because, you know, finding that person is going to be tough. If we find the person, they're probably going to retire at some point, or they might take another opportunity, or, you know, the business might outgrow their capabilities. So it's kind of, you know, strengthening the business by outsourcing, almost like relying on a team of experts as opposed to let's find one person and then, you know, we rise and fall with that person's capabilities.
Yeah. Are you helping these law firms, like Brian's taught me Arm Doctor before? It's about retention, and it's like attract, retain, motivate, develop, reward their people.
Mm-hmm.
There's another acronym.
There's another acronym. Yeah, there's a completely made up one, but Arm Doctor.
You need like to write them on the wall.
We should select it with this all. Yeah. We just have PEO.
Which nobody knows what that means.
You need you got the good logo, your intro music though. You need like an PEO Speedwagon like clip.
We're gonna have to cut that out.
We're gonna get sued. There we go.
Okay.
There we go.
No affiliation with them. Just like Speedwagons.
Yeah.
Just really the Speedwagon. It was a vehicle.
It was originally a fast wagon.
Yeah. Exactly. Volkswagen. We were back and forth on Volkswagen and Speedwagon.
But I want to hijack something for a second, which is kind of tying this together, like your very unique experience in law, in employment practice of law attorney, then also having grown and sold a successful PEO. And you just mentioned there's 450,000 of these firms that sit out there. I think a space, and you know, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, that PEOs have always struggled in is working with law practices. And it's always kind of been this very like there's a couple of industries that overarchingly, some have specialized, don't get me wrong, but I would say in my experience, when you would get an opportunity with a law practice, you're like, it's going to be tough, right? And I'm going to say the reason why is that you have why they're great fits. You have highly skilled individuals. You have people you want to attract or retain. So general principles of attraction and retention strategies, Arm Doctor, like, are good.
Yeah.
They're high paid. So, you know, and they were, in order to have high paid individuals like that, you also generally have good benefit programs in place. So like all things that make them kind of a wheelhouse across that.
Right.
But they don't do PEO a ton. And my thought process is, one is, there's that concept of like, well, we're attorneys, we can get ourselves out of trouble. Risk is not that big of a deal for us. You run into some law firms and they get it. And they go, no, like anytime we spend navigating this for ourselves, we're about billing hours and working with customers. So we can bifurcate those responsibilities and see that our time is better spent over here or not. But I would love your thoughts on that in general, because that your insight could be a really wonderful perspective on
Yeah.
how would you approach a conversation with a law practice of 20 attorney, 20 people, 3 attorneys and paralegals and all that. Like how do you focus that conversation?
It's funny because anytime, so we had several law firm clients at Tandem HR, and anytime we would have one as a prospect, I would get involved almost immediately. I don't, overgeneralizing, but lawyers love talking to lawyers.
Sure.
So
you get paid to do it.
Yeah, right, right. I mean, we think highly of ourselves, and so lawyers love talking to lawyers. And lawyers will read the client service agreement. They'll read the terms and conditions. I think.
No, they know they can't bill themselves, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, they would actually. So we had the terms and conditions on our website,
Sure.
as a page, and almost every firm that we prospected and signed would have us print those out and attach them to the agreement so that any future modifications to the terms and conditions wouldn't
Have it
be
off
binding on them.
Got it.
Yeah.
Have it off website. Makes sense. Yeah.
Right,
Yeah.
right. So, I think they're going to scrutinize everything. They're going to ask a ton of questions. And sometimes I thought, it was to their own detriment, right? They would dive down rabbit holes. And that's also common for lawyers to really uncover every stone. And it made the sales process a lot longer than usual. Also, my experience was that they would get hung up on co-employment.
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean? Does that mean that they're your employees? Or, no, that's not what it means. It's in the term co-employment. They're both like we both employ them, and not always, but just kind of a comfort level, right? I mean, you mentioned risk, like. I actually saw law firms being more risk averse instead of risk positive. Like they would be more risk averse. Like, well, what am I giving up by having you, be our co-employer? If I want to do something with my employees, then I'm not gonna, you're not gonna tell me no. And I'm trying to explain, like, well, we're here only to help. We're not going to hurt. Like, we're here to keep you out of the ditches. Like, if you want to do something that is clearly illegal, we're going to tell you can't do that. And that's a positive for you. That's a service that we're providing. We're not going to tell you need to bonus people a certain way or do, advance people one way or another or make people partner. That's not the point. The point is, if you want to do something clearly illegal, we're going to say, can't do it. But that's, you didn't have to pay us by the hour to do that advice. That's just part of the relationship. But yeah, it was a lot longer sales process and a lot of, I don't know if hand-holding is the right word, but just like walking through different scenarios and like what ifs and that kind of thing.
Yeah. And I think for some PEO reps, there's perhaps a bad assumption. Like you are an attorney, you can look at these terms, you can perhaps digest them more accurately as to like what their nature is quicker than a customer who owns a manufacturing firm or an IT firm, because like you don't deal in law every day, but the attorneys kind of like you say, like comb through it much more intently. That's their nature, I suppose.
Yes.
But it's also the value. There also just seemed to be this kind of going back to your point of like you have to have some core solutions that are going to make some impacts in a PEO relationship. And there was always this feeling, or you would get a lot of pushback, be like, well, we don't need that because we have that. Like we know how to do this stuff. And again, it's really, for me, that's where I'm curious, like, how would you approach that conversation with an attorney? So like, yes, we know you could do this stuff, but.
Yeah. We don't need it. We can do it ourselves. I would lean on, I always like to talk about like the core function, non-core function, right? Like, this is an efficiency. Yes, you can do it, but is that the highest and best use of your time? As a managing partner of a law firm, is it the highest and best use of your time to get involved in, HR compliance? Probably not, or to get involved in, processing payroll. I mean, certainly not. And so, yes, you are going to give up a little bit of control, but you're going to get back hours of time that you can do whatever you want with. Like you can bill more time, add more revenue to your company. You can like go home and see your kids or do whatever you want to do with it. And I think communication is big there too. We're not, as the PEO, going to unilaterally make decisions that are going to impact your business, right? We're here to be additive, not directive.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that concept of control for a long time was a big scary thing.
Mhm.
And then I'd be curious how your feeling on this impacted maybe the attorney space, but in general, SBEA brought PEOs to a different level of, and kind of ratified not only PEOs, but the co-employment relationship within it. And then it was now addressed in law in a much more significant way. Did that resolve anything for you in the legal space, or did it kind of just not
really? Not really. I mean, so I wouldn't bring up, especially with law firms, I wouldn't bring up co-employment like myself. I wouldn't bring it up in the sales process. I would, and when it came up, because it almost always would, I would talk about it as like, I would refer to it like as a legal fiction, that like we talk about co-employment as that is the means by which we can underwrite things more effectively. So it's not giving us more control. It is allowing us to underwrite things to your benefit. And I try and keep it that simple, but attorneys are attorneys. And so, we would often dig into, all these different scenarios.
All the things that could go wrong. That
Right.
And I always felt too, why would a PEO want to do that? Mr. or Mrs. Attorney or any other business owner, like, why would we want to get involved in these decisions? Like, at the end of the day, we want to support you, help you grow, take care of your employees, give you tools, resources to prosper and focus your attention on your core business. Like, why would we want to dictate this stuff to you? And if we did, wouldn't like that kill our entire business model? Like, I always felt it's like, wouldn't that reverberate through our entire client base that like we did this to company XYZ, and in 2025 with social and not Yelp, whatever Glassdoor, like Yelp, wouldn't, like, we have no motivation to do that. But I guess when you're an attorney, if you're like, that's not the way I'm wired. Like, I'm wired to look at what could happen, not will happen.
Well, I mean, I actually think that I wish I had thought of that. That like, I get
we'll step outside.
I get no benefit out. Mr. Attorney or Mrs. Attorney, I get no benefit out. Like, it doesn't do me any good to come in and tell you how to do your business. Like, we don't make any more money from doing that. It doesn't. We don't get any more status or get any more clients from doing that. In fact, it has the opposite effect. So we have no incentive to do it. So why would we do it? I mean, you're right. I think, they may pivot back to, well, you have the authority to do it in here. If you don't, if there's no incentive, can we just take it out?
But again, still why?
Why
would I do such a thing? Why would I do that to myself and my business and employees, to compromise all of that just to tell you what to do?
Right.
And if you said before, since there's the EPLI insurance involved, it's like, why would that even be there if we're controlling what you're doing? I've used that. Obviously going to let you operate independently from us because we have to get insurance for that exact situation.
For me, EPLI has always been the burden of proof that we won't. Because if I force you to take this to cover us both, it's with the assumption that even when you are going to do something wrong, like, we can't technically stop you. So we just reinsure ourselves and protect ourselves. So like, if I knew I was going to control and, dominate any decision with what our preference was, like, then I don't need to have an EPLI policy, because you're just going to have to do what I have to tell you to.
Yeah. I've had clients try and turn that on its head and try and say like, well, why do we need EPLI insurance? I mean, you guys are here to make sure that nothing's going to get screwed up. Like, why do we need that then? Like, well, and I would always say like, well, who can predict what employees are going to do or say, or like employees can find themselves in any kind of situation, or we can't control what kind of claims employees can file. They have a right to file any claim they want, even if it's complete bullshit.
Right.
Yeah. And you have to spend money to defend that claim. So that's why we have it.
Yeah. Missouri's an at-will state. Lots of, states are. And I would hear that at times when business owners are like, well, it's an at-will state. I can do whatever you want. And you're like, yes, it is an at-will state.
Yeah.
And they are at will to sue you. As well. Like, it doesn't prevent them from suing you just because you can terminate them for largely any reason. They're at will to sue you just as quickly.
Man, I had that brought up so many times. I wish I got $1 for every time.
Yeah.
I had that brought up. Like I wouldn't have to work anymore.
That's right.
But like that argument gets you nowhere. Like at will say, so what? That doesn't mean anything.
Right. And I think that then speaks to the psychographic of somebody who wants to do it better. Like if you're going to sit here and argue with me, by all means, you have a successful business. That just means we're kind of mismatch on this outsourcing concept, whether it's, back office solutions for a legal practice as a better way to do this, or a PEO is a better way. It's like, if you're going to cite all these reasons, then that just means from a psychographic, we don't align. You just don't get value. And you wouldn't be saying these things. And it's real hard to overcome that. You can educate, and without a doubt, we've turned some people's minds around on this over the years. But I always felt the person who buys PEO buys it with a psychographic mindset that aligns to the PEO model. Like, I'd love to do better, even though if I think some of these things are low probability risk that I'm quote unquote paying for some services on, I'd rather have them. Or I would rather have them be addressed, the costs, some other way, whether it's consolidating vendor relationships, reducing healthcare, getting better talent. Maybe I don't need that one so much, but the rest of it is worth it.
They kind of, exactly. The ideal client would like know their own limitations and also have some concept of the risk involved.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah. Knowing your limitations and knowing when I've said this probably on 12 of these podcasts. So when a business owner or an attorney is focused on something else that is not core to the business's success, that success equation, that business drops. That the business is not in as good of a state as it could be, as if that attorney or business owner was focused on practicing law, working with clients, making purple dinosaurs, what have you. And so how do we get you back to that as quick as humanly possible?
Yeah, especially for a business owner, like they should be spending as much of their time as possible on, the critical business, like the vet, the farm, type business decisions, the strategy, who we are as a business, what are we going to be doing? And the more time that they spend on downstream stuff, they're at a disadvantage.
Do you find that the success equation kind of changes as the size of that practice grows? I mean, what size companies do you predominantly work with, and do you see smaller organizations come to you guys as well?
Yeah, I would say 2 to 25 lawyers are who we normally work with at legal back office, but the number of employees could be anywhere from 5 to 50, just depending on the nature of the practice. As the number of employees grows, generally speaking, the amount of complexity of the business grows. And so, ironically, I think the more employees or the more, services the business offers, it's easier for the business owner to stay at the higher end of things because they literally don't have time.
Yeah.
And when it's smaller, I think it's easier to get sucked into this idea of like, well, we're lean and scrappy. We can do, I can do everything. I've done it. I'm capable of this. And of course you are. Like, no one's saying that, but it's not the best use of your time, and it's not the best thing for the company.
Yeah. And the idea of, if I don't do it, nobody else is going to do it. So
we have to work on it as well.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. Not as well as I'll do it. The one who started it. Yeah.
That's
a good way to think about it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Marcus, I want to thank you for coming on. This has been an awesome episode, and it's had a lot of fun here. And hopefully we'll have you back on for a return episode for not too long.
Would love it.
Yeah.
Hard up for guests. Let me know.
All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you soon.